From the Jazz renegotiating his contract to a multi-year extension, to the Utah front office striking gold in the renegotiations with JC, this is all about whether Jordan Clarkson really deserved his extension. It's hard to answer in black and white, but Utah has committed to a multi-year contract extension with Clarkson, and the front office only had good things to say about the star. If you ask Danny Ainge, the CEO of Utah Jazz, it was a no-brainer to offer Jordan a contract extension, worthy of his performances. Ainge said that Clarkson's been an integral part of Jazz's development in the last couple of seasons, and the franchise can't wait to continue this relationship. The way they're talking about it, you'd think it was actually a straightforward decision, but I'll explore why it's not that easy to say for sure. Don't get me wrong, I really like Clarkson as a player, and think he brings a lot to the team in the backcourt. That's part of the reason why the Jazz gave in to his demands, coming to terms with the reported 3-year, $55 million deal. As per the official release, the Jazz haven't confirmed the details of the extension, but Shams Charania's word is as good as the official release. Charania claimed that Clarkson was ready to pick up his player option and return for the 2023-24 season, but the fans were understandably twitchy in free agency and wanted more security on that contract. The good news is that Clarkson's returning, not just for another season but for the next 3, and the optimism in the front office is almost sickening. The Jazz claimed it was always in their plans to bring Jordan back, but the delay was due to the confusion over the kind of deal to prompt his comeback. A renegotiation seems to be in the best interest of both parties, and I think that's one of the positive outcomes of that extension. Clarkson's stock is rising fast, everyone in the NBA knows that, including the executives in Utah. You see, a standard NBA contract has value distributed across 3 seasons, with steady increases throughout. This isn't the case after the renegotiation with Clarkson, and his contract is extremely front-loaded. Yup, it's exactly how it sounds. The PG will make the most money in the first year of his contract, taking home over $23 million for the 2023-24 season and just over $14 million in the remaining 2. For what it's worth, Clarkson was due a raise, and his loyalty to not go for free agency deserved to be paid with the money he'll be making now. A decrease from $23 to $14 million might hurt, especially if he hits uncharted territory in the 2023 season. But for the Jazz, it couldn't have turned out any better. They've got immense cap flexibility due to this contract, with JC staying in Salt Lake City for the foreseeable future, and the franchise having lots of resources to spend on other holes in the roster. It's a great deal, so no wonder Ainge is made up, but not everyone's happy about it. As good as Clarkson has been for the Jazz, does it make a lot of sense to bring him back for $55 million paid over 3 years when you've got a packed backcourt? You see, the Jazz already have Colin Sexton, Keontae George, Talen Horton-Tucker, and Chris Dunn, and Clarkson's value can't be underestimated, I agree. But is it worth bringing him back when there were other problems to solve for Utah? I don't agree with this school of thought, and neither do fans. There were some bargains in the free agency, and the Jazz could have even opted for a superstar route with so many big names in the market like Kyrie Irving, Fred VanVleet, etc. If they want to prove that keeping Clarkson around was a good idea, then the Utah front office needs to shell that money out on other players, and Jordan needs to show the ambition his fans have been crying out for. He's got some issues in terms of shooting, which is a problem considering his other contributions as a playmaker and rebounder aren't all that great either. For what it's worth, though, his shooting numbers improved a lot in the 2022-23 season, which is why there's more optimism. JC had his best campaign in the NBA in 2022, averaging over 20 points for the first time in his career. For a second-round pick, this is an impressive turnaround, given how many people were writing him off in Utah. I still feel his 2021-22 season was incredible, cause 16 PPG might not move anyone, but he was only playing 27 minutes per contest. The minute those numbers increased to over 30, JC produced a career-best PPG of almost 21, while shooting at 44%. Of course, there are a lot of problems with JC, and he's far from being a pro, especially with his extremely average three-point shooting, and an almost negligible output in terms of rebounding and assist-making. Some fans will tell you that the extension was 100% worth it, and they'll be basing it off his 2022-23 season, where JC produced career-best figures for assists as well as for points per game. He nearly doubled the number of assists from the last 2 seasons and matched his career-best numbers for rebounding too. So what changed? Well, the only thing that changed was more faith from the coaching staff in JC. And if they're serious about putting the ball in his hands, then you best believe he's producing even better numbers in the 2023 season. Don't forget, Clarkson's got a lot going for him, and he's one of the most stylish players in the league. And for what it's worth, he's also a big-time fan fave in Utah. And that's huge. Do you know how difficult it is to become a fan favorite in Utah? Ask Russell Westbrook or LeBron James, because that's a tough crowd to please. Luckily for Clarkson, the people in Utah like him, and his upbringing definitely helped him. He's also done a lot of charity work and spoke about the floods in the Philippines, a place close to his heart because of his mother being of Filipino descent. All of this flies among the fan base, and that's why there was a lot of pressure on the front office to bring him back. He's got an electric personality and brings so much buzz and energy to the court, which we all know that the Jazz are in desperate need of. His nature quickly won him fans, the team, and the coaching staff too, and despite continuous trade links, fans made it clear that JC had to return. That's why the franchise made it a priority to extend his contract. They knew it was one of the most important things to do in the offseason, and they pulled it off with a really smart contract. While things are looking good, I don't want to destroy the optimism. But JC's got some very obvious issues which need to be addressed. Listen, I don't think his shooting is a major problem. There are a lot of average shooters plying their trade in the NBA without a worry in the world. I'm talking Marcus Smart, Ricky Rubio, or even Jay Crowder, just to name a few. These are the profiles you can compare JC to, but what's the difference between Jordan and the 3 names I mentioned? That trio provides considerable value elsewhere. Just take a look at Smart's elite defense, or Rubio and Crowder's high-level team defense, passing, and rebounding. Clarkson's improved all that, but he'll need to keep moving up that trajectory if he wants to justify making more money. The minute his shot stops falling, JC's value in the team disappears. But can he change that in the 2023 season? Ultimately, I feel Utah struck the perfect deal with Clarkson, and they've got to be the happier of the two sides. Look, I'm not saying JC's completely useless when he's not making those shots. He's great in terms of spacing, and teams won't leave him open, no matter what. The energy and attitude he brings to the court is unmatched, and he's earned the respect of his peers, analysts, fans, and coaches. All of these elements are critical if you want to be successful, and when he's on it, JC's unstoppable. Utah are tough to beat when he catches fire, and watching him in full swing is a sight to behold. If he can become a little more consistent, he'll make an even bigger name for himself in the NBA. As far as Ainge and his boys are concerned, they've struck gold with Clarkson. A standard contract would have been destructive, especially if JC doesn't improve in the next couple of seasons. He's 31 before the start of the 2023 season, and if they'd offered him a standard contract, Clarkson would have been making somewhere around $25 million in the 3rd year of his contract. Can you believe what a disaster that'd be? Especially if he remains more or less the type of player he is right now. So from the Utah front office striking gold in the renegotiations with JC, to the Jazz renegotiating his contract to a multi-year extension, that was all about whether Jordan Clarkson really deserved his extension.